Hey guys, I'm really excited. We're back at it, back to the basics. You know, this series that we're teaching about a very specific baits, you know, really diving off into it, hopefully helping a beginner angler, a young angler, or maybe just refreshing the memory of a more seasoned angler. And this episode, we're gonna talk all about the shaky head, a bait that I think should be in that rod box, in that kayak, in the bed of that pickup, 365 days a year. When I'm setting the hook on a shaky head, it is way more reeling than it is rod cranking, you know, like big giant hook set. You know, the biggest key to it is, you know, with a bait that light, making that long of a cast, you have to get all the slack out. And so many times, you know, you'll set the hook and then you still have a lot of slack. If you can reel, like I'm reeling the entire time I'm ever setting the hook on a shaky head. I mean, that's just all I do is just reel it as fast as I can. Really important to move the bait with your rod. I see new anglers so much trying to reel the bait, move the bait with the reel. Always move the bait with the rod. The reason is you have much more sensitivity. When you're pulling the bait with your rod, you have sensitivity. When you're moving the bait with your reel, you don't have near the sensitivity. Keep the bait on the bottom. Anytime you're working a bait like this, pretend like it is a crawdad crawling along the bottom. Visualize it. Visualize what that bait's doing. I tell people, count the rocks. That will help you slow it down. Oh, boom, there's a rock. Oh, I pull it a little further, there's another rock. Count the rocks. That'll help slow the bait down. That'll help keep the bait on the bottom. Shake the slack. You know, if you're in an area next to a stump, next to a rock, next to a dock, shake the slack in your line. You know, you can make that bait quiver. You can make that Berkeley hitworm, the tail of that thing quiver just by shaking the slack in your line. Thus the shaky head term. Don't do it tight. If the line's completely tight, then you're moving the bait. And it's okay every now and then to move the bait, hop the bait. One of the beauties of a shaky head is that it just helps stand up. You know, the way the line tie is on this Berkeley Fusion hook, you know, when I pull the bait, it makes that bait stand up, you know, thus making it a very tantalizing bait. Just how this line tie being a horizontal line tie, if it pulls it, it has to pull that bait up just like that right there. Really a cool aspect of it. Hey, let's break this down. Let's do the power stop breakdown. You know, for me, I keep my shaky heads light, always on the lighter side than the heavier side. You know, today I was using a little 16th ounce shaky head. I had a 4.5 inch hitworm, Berkeley Max Scent hitworm. You know, the color I had today was plum apple. Another color I would use a bunch would be some sort of green pumpkin. I've got 10-pound test on this one, had a little bit darker water. 8-pound, 6-pound test is a normal for me. If you do not know, use 8-pound fluorocarbon. That's the must-have. The deeper you go, the lighter the line. If you're trying to get that bait in really clear water like Table Rock, Beaver Lake, go to 6-pound test. You'll be amazed how many more bites you will get in that really clear water with 6-pound test. One of the reasons is it helps keep that bait down, helps keep it deeper. You know, the bigger the line, the more resistance it has when you pull it through the water, thus raising the bait up. So the lighter the line, the more bites you're gonna get. Rod, 7'1", medium heavy. I think that's the best rod for me. I really like it a lot. I've got just a regular, this is probably a size 2 spinning reel, whatever you've got. I've got 10-pound braid. You know, you can go up to 12, maybe 15, but the smaller the braid, the more you can cast it, the further you can cast it. Just tied you know, an Albright knot right there. Sometimes I've been really experimenting with that FG knot, been getting along with it pretty good, but that's my setup right there. Couple key things to remember: keep the bait on the bottom, go with a lighter head, go with the lightest head that you can get away with. You know, the biggest I will ever go up to is like a 3/16 or a quarter. The lighter the line, the deeper, the clearer the water, the shaky head. It is a deadly, deadly bait. Man, it's so critical to watch your line when catching them on this bait. So many of the bites will happen on the fall. It is very, very true. You've got to watch your line. That one was a prime example. prime example of that. Another variation of a shaky head, you know, I learned about last year was with Mark Sexton up north on a grass lake, the jig worm, the jig head worm. You know, I don't know the correct term. I think they call it jig worming. It's where the hook is actually exposed. You know, you want it to get caught in that grass, real light head, to where you can kind of pull on that grass and all of a sudden it pops free. Just another variation of it, you know, if you're fishing in and around grass, it can be very, very deadly. Another option as far as a bait you can put on there, you know, I like putting the general, a fatter, like if you're wanting a bigger presence, put a general or, you know, a weightless worm on there. It can be a bigger presence, a bigger bait, you know, on lakes that's got bigger fish, you know, just give you a little bit bigger profile, yet still has that fish catching action that a shaky head has. The biggest mistakes I see people making with the shaky head: too big a line, too big a head, too big a hook, not texposing that hook, getting that hook point exposed and then skin hooking it. Your hookup percentage goes way up. Too light a rod. Some people try to do a too flimsy of a rod and you can never get a hook set in it. Another mistake I see people make is, you know, not reeling the entire time they're setting the hook. Keep reeling that reel as fast as you can reel it the entire process of setting the hook, you know, until you know for a fact you've got all the, you know, you're putting as much strain on that line that you can put. Do as much reeling as you ever do hook setting. There's a bite. Oh, I love it. It's got to be one of the best baits just to catch fish on. You know, when I take a kid fishing, when I take somebody that's new to bass fishing, you know, I'd put a shaky head on their rod. It's just one of those baits that is always tied on in my boat. It's never ever not tied on in my boat unless it's just chocolate milk muddy water. If you had to choose times for it, you know, in and around the spawn, pre-spawn, post-spawn, can be a great bait, you know, in pressured situations. I guess the number one time that I'm going to throw a shaky head is just on lakes that get a lot of pressure on when I'm struggling to get a bite. That can be in and around the pre-spawn, spawn, post-spawn. You know, that offshore summer bite can be really good. That fall bite around docks can be good. You know, the beauty of a shaky head is that it just really seems to work in and around heavily pressured fish. I think it's really critical when you're fishing a bait that you got to have a lot of feel. You know, like a shaky head's a lightweight bait and you can't feel everything going on, or, you know, there's other baits. The more of a 90-degree angle you have your line to your rod, the more sensitivity you have in your rod and your line. It works a lot better. You know, if your rod's down here, or, you know, it's at this angle here, it's not near as sensitive as it is if it's at a 90-degree angle. Just keep that in mind. In my opinion, you know, some of the best places to throw it would be, you know, off rocky points, pea gravel points, chunk rock points, maybe the riprap of a bridge, the riprap of a dam. Down the sides of docks could be a great place to throw it. You know, even out off the ends of laydowns, I've caught them. There's really no wrong place to throw it, but if you had to choose, you know, really good spots, you know, I catch a lot of fish around docks, catch a lot of fish, you know, out off points, out off structure, off riprap with the shaky head. There's one. Oh, come off. It was a big one too. Gosh, dang it. You know, if I say there's one frustrating thing about a shaky head, it is there are times when you will lose fish. You know, there's one thing you can do to help put all that in your favor, and, you know, we talked about that. Just when you rig it, be sure you rig it with that hook exposed and then just barely, you know, cover that tip. You know, I think that's just one thing. I think right there on that fish, I got in a hurry and I rigged it and I had that hook pretty much buried. I didn't do it like I said we should have done it. You know, one of the times that you just can't throw a shaky head, if you have just gale force winds, you know, really, really windy, that's not the optimal time to throw a shaky head. You know, there's going to be other baits that are going to work better, spinner bait, a crankbait. those kinds of things. You have too much of a bow in your line when it's super windy. So, you know, the perfect condition would be dead calm. You know, that's really when I pull it out. Those tough fishing conditions, post-front conditions, can be really good times to throw the shaky head. Like it just all went slack right there. That's got to be a fish. I can't even find my bait. Where's it at? It's just slack. So he's got it and he's swimming towards me. I couldn't ever find my bait, and thus I didn't ever get a good hook set in there. But that's a prime example of what happens. You know, I completely lost contact with my bait, and it was because that fish had it and was swimming directly towards me. You know, if it was swimming away, you know, you'd feel that immediately, but it was just like somebody just cut my line. And a lot of bites are like that on a shaky head. It's just like somebody cut your line, it's just gone. You can't feel that little weight anymore at all. You know, to keep it simple, I throw darker colors in darker water, and I'll throw the green pumpkin or a watermelon color in really clear water. I don't think you need a lot of colors. You know, I like that plum apple in the darker colored water, coffee colored water, and I like a green pumpkin in that medium to stained water. And then in really clear water, if you wanted to get a third one, get like a watermelon or a watermelon candy. There's a bite. Oh, dang it. Come here, buddy. You know, a lot of people think that you only catch little fish on a shaky head, but man, I can tell you I've caught a lot of really big fish on a shaky head. I can tell you one event, man, I had like a 7-pound, 6-ounce bass in this event, and a competitor of mine, Kevin Van Dam, caught a 12, 2, or 3 in that same event. It was on Lake Louisville, and we both caught both of those fish on a shaky head. It just doesn't catch little ones. It also catches big ones. It's a bait I have tied on year-round other than really cold water, and there's still, I think it would work then. So there you guys have it. There's the details all about the shaky head, a bait that I think, you know, is just one of the most versatile baits. Smallmouth, spotted bass, largemouth, north, south, east, west, I don't care where you're from. Even Florida, you know, one of those states that's really different than the rest of the United States. A shaky head's tied on a lot of times for those guys down in Florida, so it's a very versatile bait, a bait that you gotta have in your kayak, you gotta have in your boat, maybe in the bed of your pickup. It's a bait you wanna have tied on and mastered and know how to throw it. So you guys leave me a comment, tell me some other baits that you wanna learn about, some other things that maybe to refresh your memory on. I appreciate you following along. We'll see you next week right here on Project E.